Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we're taking a look at Conor Bedard. Of course, we are going into the 2023 NHL draft. It's a big draft. The next franchise talent, the next Conor Bedard, is coming into the NHL next season. And, looking at the bottom of the NHL standings this year, where would a guy like Conor Bedard be the best fit? And we're going to take a look at that today. So if you look at the bottom of the NHL standings currently, it's a mixture of a couple of different teams. And unfortunately, I think a lot of these teams aren't really the best fit for Conor Bedard. So you look at some of the teams, you got Columbus, Philadelphia, Arizona, Vancouver, Chicago, San Jose, and the Montreal Canadiens. And honestly, of those teams, probably two of them, I'd actually say Conor Bedard is really a good fit for. And I'll kind of explain my reasoning. So, starting off with the Blue Jackets. The problem with the Blue Jackets is, I hate to say it, some people get the sense that he might just end up rotting in Columbus. And not necessarily because they can't develop players. Shout out to Jarmo Kekalainen. He's a great GM. But when it comes to their development of some players, there is a little worry with that. You look at some of the guys they've had recently. I mean, you look at a guy like Panarin, right? They did a really good job of kind of putting Panarin into a superstar level talent even after he left the Blackhawks. And you look at some other guys there that have kind of teetered around, right? Seth Jones, Zach Werenski. They've had some really good talent through that organization, but there is that sense that, is there a big enough fan base to even really draw up a ton of hype for Conor Bedard in the lineup on opening night next year? And I think there is that little sense of, because it's such a small market team, that maybe he won't get the attention that he probably deserves as, quote unquote, the next generational talent, right? The Flyers. The Flyers you can make a pretty good argument for. And I think to an extent with the Flyers, I'd be more willing to let them get him. And the reasoning for that is, well, you look at who is the nucleus of the Flyers right now, right? Cutter Gauthier, who isn't even in the lineup yet, Morgan Frost, Owen Tippett, maybe Joel Farabee, and Cam York on the back end. So you want to look at the next big player. Listen, you put him in the Northeast. I think the Flyers would be a fairly good fit for Conor Bedard, but realistically, not really the best fit. But like I said, that's one of the ones that is a little bit more palatable, I think, for most NHL fan bases, but definitely one that still, it doesn't seem like a great fit. Then you go to the Arizona Coyotes, and the Coyotes are a whole different scenario in their own right. And based off of what they did last year, they picked up Logan Cooley, they brought in Geeky, they brought in some, really, two centers in the top 15 of the NHL draft last year. They've drafted Dylan Guenther. They've drafted a lot of forwards in the beginning of the draft over the last couple of years. So he'd be a great player in that system, right, in terms of kind of the nucleus of that group. Bedard would still absolutely be at the top of that list. But again, similar to Columbus, because the market is so small in Arizona and the fact they're playing in such a small rink, literally, in ASU, there is a sense that maybe there's a little bit of untapped potential with Bedard going to a team like the Coyotes. And there's always that sense that could they move and this and that. And it's not really the best spot that I think for Conor Bedard. And I'm sure there are Coyotes fans and Blue Jackets fans that will disagree with me. I could guarantee you, though, pretty much all the other fan bases would agree those two spots are probably the worst spots for Conor Bedard. And again, he might end up getting drafted there and having a great career. But I think there's the question of untapped potential. Like, he will max out any potential wherever he goes. But I think in those markets, it's a lot less, there's a lot less that you can get to, right, in terms of hype, right? And that's why if Matthews went to what if Matthews went to the Blue Jackets, right? Would he have the same amount of hype that he has right now in Toronto? Let's be honest, absolutely not. Right? And I think people have to just kind of accept that. And that's kind of what you're looking at here with teams like Columbus and Arizona for Bedard. That's just the reality of the situation. Then you get to Vancouver. Now, I do not like the Canucks, and I don't like the city of Vancouver. I have no real affinity for Vancouver. But I got to be honest, the kid's from North Vancouver, and he would love to play there, I would think. Passionate fan base, a big city there in Vancouver. That seems like the best Canadian spot for Conor Bedard right now. He already plays in the Western Hockey League. He plays in Regina. It just seems like a perfect fit. And I think if I'm looking at one specific Canadian team, I think Conor Bedard is the best fit there. And then you naturally get that rivalry again, potentially with the Edmonton Oilers. Conor versus Conor, right? The Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks could build a pretty big rivalry there between Conor Bedard and Connor McDavid. And having those two guys in the same division would be pretty entertaining. I think that would be some really good hockey. I'd be a fan of Vancouver getting Conor Bedard. Chicago. Chicago's another team that I think is, an original six franchise, big fan base, big market there in Chicago, there in the Midwest. I think they're a really good fit in terms of an American team, south of the border. I think the Blackhawks are probably the best team in the States to pick up Bedard. And some people will be annoyed, of course, because they just, this is the end of a regime there with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane no longer there, or soon to not be there longer for Jonathan Toews. Getting that fresh blood right away, that quick injection of a Conor Bedard franchise-level player, fans of opposing fan bases will be upset, but I think he's a good fit for that team. And they will get the most out of Conor Bedard. They will grow a lot of hype around him. And you look at some of the guys that are already there, he's a really good nucleus for what they can start to build there. They've got some decent players that he could play alongside. And I think if the Blackhawks did get Bedard, they would want a veteran good player to play along him moving forward. So I could see the Blackhawks maybe being an aggressive rebuilder if they are able to get a guy like Bedard. And maybe it'll be a short rebuild, which, like I said, I think some fan bases will be upset they don't go through the pain and the torture that they think they should have. But in terms of really the best two fits I could think of, Vancouver and Chicago, they're kind of at the top of the list, in my opinion. Then we get to San Jose. San Jose makes some sense because of, again, you have a couple of veterans there. But, again, he's not going to get the prime limelight in San Jose, right? It's not the biggest hockey city, right? They're a team in California, right? So there is a lot of people there, but they don't really watch hockey. It's very basketball focused out there on the Bay. And not that I don't think the Sharks would love to have him. Of course they would. Any of these teams would. But I think that, you look at who's already there. You got Tomas Hertl, Erik Karlsson, Logan Couture. He kind of just becomes another guy in that mix, right? Montreal. Montreal's another interesting one. I don't think he's a great fit there. Some people will make the argument that he is, but again, you've already got Nick Suzuki. You've already got Cole Caulfield. He's not the number one go-to guy in Montreal. And you definitely got the passionate fan base. You definitely have the numbers in terms of a market, right? Those tickets are expensive as hell up there in Montreal. He's a good fit in that sense, but like I said, because of their roster already with Suzuki and Caulfield and some of those other guys, and Juraj Slafkovsky, first overall pick last year, I think it's one of those things where he's not necessarily a need for the Canadiens. He would just be, we happen to get Conor Bedard too, right? So that's my thoughts on that. And then to end it, the Anaheim Ducks are another team that's been in the mix. Listen, I love the Ducks. They're my second favorite team. I don't think they're a great fit for Conor Bedard. And the reason I say that is similar to the Canadiens, except more inflated. They've already got Mason McTavish. They've already got Trevor Zegras down the middle. So you have to move one of those guys to the wing, or you make... it's not going to happen. None of those three guys will be a third-line center during their prime of their NHL career. So now one of them has to go to the wing, and like I said, you start distributing some of that love from that one player, and that's kind of what happens to a guy like Conor Bedard in a place like Anaheim. And despite them not being very good and probably needing a guy like Bedard, I think that when you look at their situation, they already have enough guys on that team. You've got Isaac Lundestrom, you've got some of the younger guys coming up still. I just don't think realistically it's the spot that is the best for Conor Bedard at this point in time. So if I had to predict, honestly, the best two spots for Conor Bedard right now in the States is the Chicago Blackhawks, big original six fan base, very passionate, right? They're coming off of the end of that era they had, the Stan Bowman era, right, with Kane and Taves heading out the door, everybody else kind of out the door. This would be a great way to reset that team. And for the Vancouver Canucks, I think they're the best Canadian fit because, again, there's the idea that he's the hometown boy playing for his hometown team. Big market there in Vancouver. Depending on what happens with some guys like Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, I think he's going to be their first-line center moving forward, right? Conor Bedard will be that guy fairly quickly in a city like Vancouver. So that's kind of it. I want to know what you guys think. Who do you guys think is the best fit? Which NHL team is the best fit for Conor Bedard? Give your reason why. Let me know in the comments section down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time.